Sea salt. Sea salt crunches. Table salt just dissolves on the tongue, but good sea salt keeps its crystal shape and snaps between your teeth because it's never ground down into uniform grains. It starts as seawater, channeled into shallow pans and left to evaporate under sun and wind until only crystals remain, keeping trace minerals that refining strips out of table salt. Timing decides which kind you get. Skim the thin, delicate crust the moment it blooms on the surface, before it sinks, and it's fleur de sel, French for flower of salt, hand-raked from Brittany's Guérande marshes with wooden rakes. Let the crystals settle onto the clay pond floor instead, and they turn into sel gris, coarser, gray, and still damp with roughly 13% moisture. Evaporate it slowly over gentle heat in shallow pans in Essex, England, and the crystals form hollow pyramid flakes, Maldon salt, prized by chefs for the loudest crunch of any finishing salt. Salt has been made this way on England's Blackwater estuary since Roman Britain. The Domesday Book recorded 45 lead salt pans working the Essex marshes by 1086. The trade continued quietly for centuries until 1882, when James Osborne and his son Cyril founded the Maldon Salt Company, turning the same hand-raking method into a brand now run by the fourth generation of Osbornes and shipped worldwide. Fleur de sel has an older paper trail. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder recorded it under the name flos salis, used as a laxative and skin treatment rather than a seasoning. By the 800s, the French town of Guérande had become the center of that trade, and locals still rake it by hand from the same marshes today. Himalayan pink salt. Himalayan pink salt is pink because of rust. Trace iron oxide is trapped inside the crystals, the same chemical reaction that turns exposed metal reddish-brown, just diluted enough to show up as a soft blush instead of solid red. The salt formed when an ancient sea evaporated and its mineral layers were buried, compressed, and pushed upward by the same tectonic collision that built the Himalayas, though geologists still debate exactly how long ago that happened, with estimates ranging from roughly 250 million to 600 million years. Almost all of it comes from one source, the Kira salt mine in Punjab, Pakistan, now one of the largest salt mines on Earth. It's mostly sold as a finishing salt or pressed into cooking blocks, since its coarse crystals dissolve too slowly for everyday seasoning. According to legend, Alexander the Great's soldiers discovered the deposit in 326 BC after watching their horses lick the rocks, a story historians treat as folklore, not fact. Organized mining didn't begin until centuries later, under the Mughal Empire, which took over extraction from the Janjua Raja tribe who had worked the site since around the 1200s. The Sikh Empire seized the mine in the early 1800s and gave it the name Kira, and Britain took control in 1849, with mining engineer H. Worth building the mine's main tunnel in 1872. That tunnel network, since expanded, is still in use today. Rock salt, halite. Rock salt melts ice without warming it up. Dissolved salt lowers the temperature at which water can freeze, so a bucket of ice packed with rock salt can drop several degrees below freezing and still stay slushy instead of solid. That's what makes it useful in an old-fashioned ice cream churn. The salted ice around the canister gets cold enough to freeze the cream mixture inside, while a hand crank keeps ice crystals from forming into a solid block. Rock salt itself is just halite, mined in large, coarse, unrefined chunks, like Himalayan salt, but without the iron oxide that turns that one pink, and never dissolved and re-evaporated the way table or sea salt is. Too harsh and impure for the table, it's saved for de-icing roads and churning ice cream at home. In 1843, Philadelphia inventor Nancy Johnson patented the first hand-cranked ice cream freezer, called the artificial freezer, after growing frustrated with how labor-intensive homemade ice cream was. Her design packed a metal canister of cream mixture inside a wooden tub, filled with ice and rock salt, with a hand crank turning paddles that scraped frozen cream off the inner walls as it formed. She sold the patent rights to William Young, who marketed it as the Johnson Patent Ice Cream Freezer, and turned what had been a luxury dessert for the wealthy into something any household could make at home. Black salt, kala namak. Kala namak smells like hard-boiled eggs, not salt. That's hydrogen sulfide, the same gas that gives eggs their sulfurous smell, formed when the salt, the same Himalayan rock salt already covered, is fired in a kiln above 800 degrees Celsius alongside seeds, bark, and fruit like harad and amla. The heat breaks down sulfate minerals in the raw rock into sulfides, which is also what turns the crystals a deep purplish black. Ground into powder, the color lightens to pink or brown. In Indian cooking, that eggy edge is the point. It's the base of chaat masala sprinkled over street food and fruit, and has become a favorite with vegan cooks recreating the taste of egg in dishes like tofu scrambles. Kala namak's use goes back to Ayurveda, the traditional medicine system of the Indian subcontinent. The physician Karaka, writing around 300 BC, is credited as the first to document it, recommending it as part of the herbal blend Triphala to aid digestion and relieve bloating. That reputation as medicine is what carried it into the kitchen. The same sulfurous edge Ayurvedic healers valued for the gut became, centuries later, the signature note in chaat masala and North Indian street food. Persian blue salt. Persian blue salt looks dyed. It isn't. The color is baked into the crystal itself, and it survives grinding, dissolving, or crushing exactly the same way every time. The real cause is radiation. These deposits formed near sylvite, a potassium mineral containing a naturally radioactive form of potassium called potassium-40. Over millions of years, radiation from that potassium bombarded the surrounding salt crystals, knocking electrons loose and trapping them in gaps in the crystal structure. Those trapped electrons scatter light differently than a normal colorless salt crystal, which is what produces the blue. It's mined only in a handful of deposits worldwide, most famously in Iran's Semnan province, and sold in small quantities as a rare finishing salt rather than an everyday seasoning. The story starts with a shallow ancient sea that evaporated, leaving thick layers of salt behind. The same basic process that formed most of the world's rock salt. Over time, those layers were buried under younger rock, and pressure from above pushed the dense salt upward, slowly forming underground domes rather than staying in flat sheets. In Iran, that upward push created the salt domes of the Zagros and Semnan regions, where wells and tunnels now reach the blue veins buried inside. Because the color only forms in isolated pockets near potassium deposits, workers still extract it the way prospectors dig for a vein of ore, pulling out just a small amount each year compared to ordinary rock salt. Hawaiian red alea salt. Hawaiian red salt gets its color from clay, not from the sea. After sea salt is harvested from shallow ponds, it's mixed with alea, a volcanic clay rich in iron oxide, which dyes the crystals a deep brick red and adds an earthy edge to the flavor. To native Hawaiians, that clay carries more than color. Alea salt was traditionally used to bless and purify canoes, tools, homes, and temples. Not just to season food. It still flavors staples like kalua pig, poke, and pipakaula, Hawaiian beef jerky. A newer variation swaps the red clay for activated charcoal instead of iron oxide, turning the same sea salt jet black, sold today as Hawaiian black lava salt, mostly produced on the island of Molokai. Long before Europeans arrived, Hawaiians harvested salt by evaporating seawater in shallow rock pools, then traded it as one of the island's first commodities. That trade expanded fast after contact. By the 1830s, the Hudson's Bay Company was shipping Hawaiian salt north to its Pacific Northwest posts to cure salmon, with exports climbing to roughly 15,000 barrels a year by 1847. The trade dried up by the 1880s as competing salt sources took over, but the salt itself never left Hawaiian kitchens or ceremonies, and alea salt is still hand-harvested today at ponds like Hanapepe on Kauai.